All right, we are back for some post-draft analysis. We brought along a friend, Ryan Beltz of the Big Time Sports podcast, a former high school classmate of ours, but he's gone on to rival us in a lot of great podcasts and a lot of great guests that he's had on his show. Ryan, thanks for joining. But let's get into our first topic here. I think we were all very much surprised by the second round pick of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the Browns, pulling out someone who could have been a first rounder. And that might have been the surprise of the draft, but there was many other surprises. Maybe it was Togiai coming in the third round. I'm messing up that pronunciation, but let's keep going. Ryan, let's go to you first here as our guest. I guess biggest surprise and just thoughts coming back with how successful the Browns were with this draft.
Well, first off, guys, thank you so much for having me. I've been a big fan of your guys' podcast, and obviously it was a pleasure having Spani and Sonia on last week. Drew, we're going to get you on.
Oh man, I had some FOMO going when I heard about that.
I saw that. I promise we'll do it again. We'll get you all back on. So first,
all right,
great to be here. Yeah, I think overall a successful drafting. Everyone in Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, loving what Andrew Berry and company did. It finally felt good that we had a draft where we were just kind of filling in some pieces and not needing parts to kind of rebuild a whole team. So that was kind of nice. But yeah, I would say I'll say JOK and Tommy T, because I know we're all having trouble with pronunciations with these guys. Both great picks. But the fact that we got JOK when we did, when he was a projected first round pick, his versatility for what we're looking for. He's a guy that could easily drop back in the secondary, play in that nickel formation. He's a guy you can possibly use on the edge as an edge rusher and complement Clowney and, of course, Myles Garrett as well. So I think the fact that Barry saw the value there and traded up and said, we have to get this guy. I mean, he's available in the second round. I think is huge. It's going to pay dividends. It's hard to argue against that being the steal of the draft. Tommy T is another one from Ohio State, the big defensive tackle. He's a guy that, I read today, the Browns believe can be a legitimate pass rusher and along with someone that can plug that hole and stop the run, but also someone that can be effective in pass rush too. So you look at those two picks and where we got them, hard to argue against those two as being steals of the draft when we look maybe 5 years down the road.
Tommy T. That's why we got a professional like Ryan here on the podcast.
It's such a breath of fresh air.
Refreshing change.
Drew, let's go to you here.
Here we go.
Were you surprised? It was such a great draft.
It was. Yeah, I couldn't believe that that JOK was still on the board. I couldn't believe that that the NFL allowed the Browns to go up and get him. I suppose everybody has a price. Everybody's gonna pay. Oh, we're going for it. It was awesome to see that trade. I was going absolutely insane watching that. I thought I was getting the better value being there on day one. I went there for day one. I was making fun of the Bengals when they picked the wide receiver instead of the tackle. I had a great time up there with my cousin. But the day two was it, man. That was an incredible day. And, I think that is certainly going to be, in my opinion, the steal of the draft. That's who, I had as a top 5 pick for them in the first round. I believe, Ryan and Eric, you had him as your number 1 guy. And to get him where they did is just awesome. I think he's the best linebacker that they've had potentially ever. And certainly since they returned. So, I couldn't believe it. I was going nuts, and I still am. I cannot wait for the season to begin.
Yeah, so Togiai at the defensive tackle position. It feels like we might be moving further away from Sheldon Richardson. So, Eric, let's go to you there. Is this sort of the replacement for Richardson? Or were you surprised? We knew it wasn't going to be that deep of a defensive tackle draft. Do you think this was a big steal to get him?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it is. If you want to look at numbers and analysis, that I'm your guy. JOK was number 16 on the big board of Pro Football Network, number 18 on the Draft Network, obviously drafted at 52. Togiai was 81 on Pro Football Network, 61 on the Draft Network. and 132 he was drafted. And I will throw in the nugget of Marvin Wilson. That was not yeah, I guess that was pun intended. Marvin Wilson, undrafted. There were 259 picks. He was 183 on Pro Football Network's big board and 152. So if you go by the numbers, technically he's probably the biggest steal as far as your value versus and when you got him versus how high he is on the board. But I think for what Joe Woods is trying to do with this defense, and I think the expectations of JOK against the run and the pass, especially in 2021, obviously it's hard to argue against JOK being the biggest steal if he's going to be a starter day one. Togiai is in, he could be a starter. I don't know about day one. He could be a starter sometime this year and then 2022 and beyond, but he's in a very crowded room right now. I think there's 8 guys on the roster currently, which is very deep for a position group that it might only end up with 4. But you look at Malik Jackson, Andrew Billings, and Jordan Elliott for the other three guys that are likely going to make this team. Malik Jackson, I think he's definitely won a Super Bowl. I don't remember if he was the MVP or not. Andrew Billings, who was a guy that they were, hot on last year, and Jordan Elliott, they really like coming into a second season. So I expect Togiai to get some playing time, but I don't expect it to be the likes of JOK's playing time in 2021. But, hopefully 2022, 2023, Togiai eventually becomes that starter. And like as Ryan Sponseller said, is that, he is that pass rusher because, Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson, they were good guys against the run, and there were occasional threats in the pass defense, the pass game, I guess. And I'm hoping younger Togiai can do this as opposed to guys in their 30s. So, I'm really excited to see what he can bring to the table.
I'll round it out. I think JOK was the steal because I think we stole him away from other teams. I think the Steelers could have been in play to get JOK. He would have hated that the Ravens pick him up. It just seems like he's the type of player that those teams would get in the second round. But the Browns going up to grab JOK, stealing him away. It feels like we're walking away with 2 first-rounders. An incredible draft for the Browns.
Yeah, I second that completely. And I think, with the draft, and this has been said a lot on draft day, it's not about when you're drafted, but where you're drafted to. And I think JOK and Newsome, who we got first round, and I honestly believe when we look back in 5 years of this draft, we're going to look at Newsome as, potential all-pro and all the accolades I think is going to be Newsome. They both got drafted in very desirable positions because Newsome comes in, he's paired with Ward, who's another great corner, lockdown corner, so it's not too much pressure on Newsome. And you bring in JOK, and someone now that doesn't have to do too much in terms of edge rush and getting to the passer, has great once-in-a-generation pass rushers and Clowney and Garrett with him. And then he's got help in the secondary as well. So both those guys are coming into great positions, I think, where they can shine. So it's not so much when these guys were drafted, but, who would have thought we would say this, but where they were drafted. And they were drafted to the Browns, and absolutely perfect, I think, for both these guys where they went to.